Welcome, everyone. We are back on a Thursday afternoon, morning, wherever you are, at live with Dr. McDougall. And I'm Gustavo Tolosa. As usual, you're probably getting tired of seeing me, but you're stuck now with me. And I love it too much to spend this time with Dr. McDougall and you. And I know that everybody logging in now is thinking this. So I'm just going to say it, and I hope it's okay that Dr. McDougall is not getting tired of hearing the same thing, but we all appreciate so much that Dr. McDougall gives freely of his time. This is a physician and a very generous man that has been practicing medicine for half a century now and written a dozen best-selling books and treated patients, thousands of patients, saved I don't know how many thousands of lives all over the world. And it is our privilege to have him just for us. And like I have said before, I know many other doctors in the plant-based world. I don't see them doing a free webinar every week. And we are just very appreciative, Dr. McDougall, and it's a privilege. And we all welcome you. So how are you doing today in Santa Rosa?
Oh, it's good. It's been warm here. I guess it's been warm in lots of parts of
Yes.
the Southwest and the West, but
there is no global warming, right?
No, and there's a great healthcare system they just looked at today too. I mean, fantastic. I, being one of the rich, get to be a little richer, so it's just amazing how greedy human beings are. But anyway, we're here. Mary and I are doing well and enjoying the summer with the grandkids. We've had the three grandsons, Heather's kids, over every day this week so far for a swim. And that I'll tell you, Gustavo, I can be kind of dragging around for the day, oohing and on and making excuses for myself about why I'm not doing this and why I have this little ache or pain here. And those three little boys, they're 8, 10, and 13, they come over and every thought except happiness disappears. It's amazing. I'm physically, mentally, emotionally, I feel like a whole different person.
It's so an injection of energy and happiness.
Yeah. And I've got 4 more grandkids coming up. So, gee, just for the fun that I have possible in my future, I should be around for a long time. We're looking forward to this afternoon.
Well, very good.
I know you all have been watching the newspaper, and probably some of you have been looking into the politics, which of course, I mean, how many times can you hear breaking news? I just don't get it. But anyways, after about the 4th time I've heard the breaking news, I can't take any more politics.
No.
So that's been kind of interesting. But also what's been interesting, you say I've been at this for a long time. I have, enjoyably so. It'll be 2018, it'll be 50 years that I've been in medicine. And so now it's 49, and we've done 13 books. And I think the reason that you always see a smile on my face and why, I look like I like doing this is because naturally I'm a teacher. I've always loved to teach. I used to teach anatomy and neuroanatomy in medical school. In addition, that's one of the ways I put myself through medical school. And so I've always been a teacher. So it's just really fun for me to watch people's eyes open, their minds open, and get real excited about important information, not unimportant information, but things that make a difference in your life. And if you've been watching last week and the last couple of weeks, you see that things are changing. The American Medical Association came out and said, regardless of what the BS liars over the last, Atkins started it in the 70s, but there was a resurgence of Atkins in the 90s, and now we have wheat belly and grain brain, and a guy named Grundy. We talked about the lectin idea last week. These people are coming out left and right, and it's the most bizarre thing in the world. You'd never thought this would have been the case if you'd been raised, taught in the 70s about what good nutrition is and why people are dying. In the 70s, they clearly identified animal foods as being the primary killers, heart disease being number one. They talked about diabetes and cancer and so on. You never thought that it would become to be just the opposite, but it is. I don't think there's a listener out there, or probably a human being that has any form of education that hasn't been taught the right diet is the paleo diet, which is 55% animals. They could be endangered species, doesn't matter, they just have to be animals. Or the low carb diets where you're getting up, almost all the diet is animals or oils. And you live through that. I've lived through that for the past, it's been at least 20 years. And you've wondered, why in the world, how could this happen? How can people miss it? Well, I believe it's because of the money. It's always because of the money and people's personal eating habits. They always want to justify why pepperoni pizza is the number one food for preventing senility. That's kind of the way nature is. But I never imagined it could go this far in this day and age of information and technology and people having a good life. I mean, they're dealing with most parts of the world. They're dealing with a wife and a husband and children and family and community and so on. Really, I don't know that things have ever been better in my reading of history than they are right now. You would think that people would have times to think about how to make things even better and really tackle the cause of diseases. But that hasn't happened. But this week it kind of did with a spark. There was an article about how most diseases can be prevented by eating starchy foods. Believe that. And then the American Medical Association came out and said, wait a minute, there's no question about this. Saturated fat, which means eggs and dairy and meat, is not healthy. It will make you sick, give you heart disease. And the headlines in the paper focused on how cheese is unhealthy with you. Well, you shouldn't have just left it at cheese. I mean, they talked about all the different animals that people eat being unhealthy. So, there is a trend out there of the truth being leaked out. And that's good. But I do understand it may not be enough. And the only reason I understand this is I've lived through 40 years, 4 decades of seeing the truth demolished and the liars winning when I never thought it could have happened. And now it's kind of swinging back in the right direction. I don't know. Let's just hope we can keep being out there and talking and telling people the truth so that they can get their health back. I'm looking forward to that. Well, let's see. I'm also involved, as many of you know, I get involved in topics here, the brain. My brain just gets focused on something and wants to know more and more and more and more about it. Well, I'm revisiting a subject probably next week, maybe over the next 3 weeks. It's going to be the topic of next month's newsletter, which is something to the effect, I'll figure out some tricky topic title, something to the effect that aluminum causes Alzheimer's. I wrote this newsletter in 2004, so 17 years ago I wrote it. And now I decided I would just update and revisit how people are thinking and what the research says and how things are going and so on. And the papers these days clearly, unequivocally say that Alzheimer's disease is caused by aluminum poisoning, the metal aluminum. And the evidence is even more consistent, more calling for action than it ever was to do something about the consumption of aluminum. Well, anyway, I'm going to talk about that next week and the week after. So if you want to get up to date a little bit, there's an article I wrote in the year 2004 on how Alzheimer's disease can be prevented and helped now, by changing diet. And there's also chelation therapy and so on. But we were going to finish off, Gustavo, today, and I'm going to try and just kind of make it short. It's a subject that everybody has touched on, and most appropriate too. And it has to do with the last chapter of the GI book. which we've been going over for the last few months. Unfortunately, it's not something I could have put on our website for free because it's still copyrighted, but you can buy the book many places. Other books that we've talked about, I've made them available free for you. I just couldn't do that. But anyway, the finish off, as I was reading the end of the book about Larry and Louise and their trips through the digestive tract, I got to the last chapter, the one we were to talk about today. I thought, how appropriate to put that chapter in, and why not at the end? It's a chapter about human evolution, primate evolution, evolution in the animal kingdom, whatever you want. However we got from there to here, and ladies and gentlemen, I think it took more than 6,000 years, but we'll just keep that out of the discussion. Yeah, the human being, the gastrointestinal tract is probably where you can make the most connections. The human being is designed as a plant eater. Let's compare carnivores, that means meat eaters, to herbivores, which are plant eaters. Then there's something in between, which is an omnivore. I would call a dog an omnivore. I'd call a cat a carnivore. And I would call all my relatives herbivores, or at least they should be. How does a carnivore, like my cat, how do they cool themselves? How do herbivores cool themselves? I mean, when they overheat. Carnivores don't sweat. Herbivores do. Carnivores pant to cool themselves. It's a hot day here in June of 2017. As you're out walking around and you're noticing people, how many of them are panting to cool themselves? How many are sweating? As you sit down to the lunch table today with your friends and coworkers and so on, and you watch them consume their beverage, how do they consume the liquid? Well, think about yourself. What are you going to do with that glass of water in front of you? Are you going to lap it like that? I doubt it. What you're going to do is sip it, right? That's what plant eaters do, is they sip. Carnivores lap. Plant eaters, they perspire to cool themselves, and meat eaters, they pant. That's the way it is. The mouth, teeth, and so on, I'm sure it's not too hard to convince you that they are designed as herbivore teeth, plant-eating teeth. And your friends go, wait a minute. You're not right, Dr. McDougall. We are really omnivores. And the proof is, and we've all been taught it, it's because of our dentition. We have 4 carnivorous teeth. Yeah, these are here. I know it's kind of hard to see them. I'd probably have to draw a colored pencil on for you.
Very impressive.
Yeah, really. I should bring Einstein in here and show him.
That's right.
Or when I had a dog, or a chimpanzee who has 90% of their genes the same as ours. And they're plant eaters, occasional bug or a rodent here and there. You look at, take the trouble to look up what a chimpanzee looks like, and they got 4 huge teeth, and they're clearly on the herbivorous side, plant-eating side. You know, a touch omnivore in them, not much. If they're clearly and accepted by you, your friends, your veterinarians, your doctor, your strongest eating Burger King and McDonald's follower, you got to see that the teeth of human primates are more plant-eating oriented than even those of chimpanzees, which are accepted as plant eaters. Amylase is the digestive enzyme in your saliva and in your small intestine. Cat does not produce amylase. Carnivores do not produce amylase. Amylase digests amylose and amylopectin, which is starch. That's why we have that enzyme. Our taste buds, the tip of our tongue tastes not only sugar, which is all I knew about when I wrote that book, this book, in 2007. not just sugar, which is only made by plants. Human primates have a separate taste bud for starch. Yes, it was reported last year that when you block the sweet tasting taste buds, which everybody would clearly say, sweet taste comes from plants, from fruits and other plants, and of course sugar. Everybody recognized that. I've known that, I'm sure, since grade school. But last year at one of the Oregon universities, I should write it down so I don't get mixed up, probably Oregon State University. But there was a major paper published where they blocked the sweet tasting taste buds, and they discovered as a result of blocking these sweet tasting taste buds, another set of taste buds that was just as strong and dedicated towards starch, like bread and pasta and potatoes. And so our taste buds are designed to be starch eaters. A cat, like Einstein, my, of course, favorite cat, a cat has no taste buds for sugar or for starch. They have taste buds for amino acids, protein. That's what they're designed to eat. Their stomachs are designed to digest protein. They have 10 times the concentration of hydrochloric acid, which digests meat, as does an herbivore. We have a long, complicated intestinal tract so that we can digest the foods, which are relatively undigestible compared to meat. Plant foods require some digestion. And it takes a complicated, tortuous, long path to get the plant foods digested into the proteins, vitamins, minerals, carbohydrates, and the fats that we need. Now, a carnivore or meat-eating animal, they have a short, very tubular, straight line, not convoluted with a whole bunch of pockets and so on, intestinal tract, so that the remnants of the food can be digested and eliminated quickly. Yes. Hands, obviously, these hands are not designed to tear chickens apart. But my cat's paws are designed perfectly for the job. Let's see, what else? Oh, let me just kind of, I mean, we could go on forever. In fact, I encourage you, there's one of our advanced study weekend seminars is on evolution. And it's a brilliantly done piece. And I'll get it up for you here in just a couple of minutes. But it just wonderful slides. And as a result, it was done at the February 2017 Advanced Study Weekend. It's well worth looking at. It goes through a tremendous comparative analysis of plant eaters and meat eaters. Let's see. Oh, one last thing. Oh, I got it. Just one last thing, which I find entertaining, because everything of sexual nature is entertaining to the human being. As I mentioned, my 3 grandkids are coming over this afternoon. So any topic related to between the belly button and the kneecaps is at least worth a giggle. So let me end by this statement about herbivores, plant eaters. The male plant eater has 2 sacs connecting to the bladder called the seminal vesicles. And the seminal vesicles, they collect sperm from the testicles and prostate secretions from the prostate, and they store them in these sacs, vesicles. I would guess the vesicles contain about 1 to 2 ounces of fluid. That's the semen. And only plant eaters have seminal vesicles. Carnivores don't have them. They have a small ejaculate, and they have no storage sacs. So one of the characteristics of a plant-eating animal, which would be a cow, a horse, primates, etc., is they have these 2 saccular formations that store semen for ejaculation. Whereas you don't have that storage system in a meat-eating animal. Anyway, there are discussions that could go on forever and ever and ever about the difference between plant eaters. When a plant eater tries to eat like a meat eater, the obvious consequence is they get sick. Just like I've given many of you the analogy, what if I decided to feed Einstein potatoes? I mean, the best quality potatoes from Idaho, hand-picked. Einstein would be sick and dead soon because that's not his food. Well, if you eat Einstein's food, in other words, meat, then what's going to happen is you're going to get sick. You can't support normal human health. Anyway, that is a fairly good discussion at the end of this book, and it ties so well to the gastrointestinal tract, which means that's how we survive. Our hands have to get the food, our teeth have to chew the food, our intestines have to digest the food, and that is probably most clearly brought out in terms of evolution. All right, do we have any questions today? Yeah.
Yes, Dr. McDougall, we do.
When they argue with folks, they always come out with, well, look at our teeth. And you now know that you tell them, well, let's look at our teeth. And they point out, look at our hands. You can point these out to people. I guess they're still worthwhile. Yes, why not? You got to start them at a most basic level.
Still, if someone doesn't want to see the truth, they're just not going to see it.
They're not going to see it.
Well, Dr. McDougall, we do have a few questions. If some people send them in, and I have some that people are typing here. So is that okay if we jump into some of these questions?
Yeah, right. It is.
But before that, we have to show you new glasses.
Okay. You mean those glasses, Gustavo? Okay.
Everybody, get ready. We have to do this. I'm sorry, we're going to put a little
You may think I bought these at the 10-cent store. And it's also, I guess the only reason I even will consider showing you this, because I was just shared this with you. The only reason I consider showing you this is that Dr. McDougall ages 2 also.
Well,
and I do
in a
notice
stylish way.
Pretty gracefully. I'd say pretty gracefully. But
yes,
one of the things that I've noticed, of course, over the years is my vision, as happens with most elderly people. My long distance vision, if I showed you my driver's license, you'll see that I have no requirement for glasses. I've had no LASIK surgery. I've had nothing done to my eyes. I am able at 70 years old, which is, I suppose, unusual, or certainly not as common. I'm able to pass the driving test still. The reading issue, however, has deteriorated more quickly over the last 10 years, where I started out with readers that I bought at Walmart for $10 a piece. I buy them, those kind of readers, because I lose them all the time. So I've got about 20 pairs of these of these readers, which are losers, around the house. And I've gone from 1s to 2s for the last, say, 3 or 4 years. And it's finally gotten to the point where I was at the eye store getting my, so that you brought it up, I got to share it all.
You have to show it.
In addition to these $10 glasses, Mary finally talked me into buying this pair of glasses about 3 years ago. So I've had these for 3 years. They've been 2s readers, and they are very expensive.
Oh,
let me tell you, more than I ever wanted to spend, because I knew I'd lose them, but I've had them for 3 years. So we were getting the frames adjusted on our glasses yesterday. And I said, I just can't take this. I can't read the newspaper as well as I used to. And my favorite cartoon, Bizarro, by Dan Peraro, which I read every day, is a good friend of mine. It's getting harder and harder to read it without putting 2 pairs of glasses on. So, all right, Gustavo, there we go. I finally broke down. I was in the eye store. I wanted a $10 pair of glasses that I could see out of, but all they had was these.
Well,
and they weren't $10. These are Elton John glasses, I think. What do you think?
You have to start taking piano lessons so you can.
Maybe people have respect for me because I have these glasses. What do you think?
No,
anyway, they were
cool.
not extremely expensive, but they were a lot more expensive than that. And the other reason I bought, I'll tell you what, just to be honest with you, because you guys are friends, is I think I can find them.
Yeah.
When you got 20 pairs of glasses around and they're all the same framed color.
That's right.
I pick up and put on 10 pairs of glasses sometimes before I find the ones that still work. I should just throw them away or just buy ones in different colors.
Well, those you can find. They're almost fluorescent.
Yeah, so far I haven't lost them. So far I've been able to find them. And
thank you for
showing. By the way, I can read the Bizarro cartoon really easy now.
It'll keep you anything to keep you happy.
It's important though, Gustavo, because a lot of people, as they get older, and I see this in my friends and patients, they lose contact.
Right, quality of life. Yes,
they lose contact because they can't hear what people are saying, and they can't read.
Then they can't watch.
They become isolated.
Yeah, they do.
And it's really hard for us as we get older to admit that we need to buy glasses and stronger glasses.
Hearing aids or hearing whatever it is. Yes.
Yeah. But it's inevitable unless you take the earlier way out, which is to die early.
Yes.
You don't want to do that. Everybody's in the same game.
Yeah, we're all
if you're going to live to be in your 70s, 80s, and maybe fortuitously into your 90s. I read today about a guy who's 87, who's traveled to 60 countries over the last 10 years. He was in our travel section of the paper today. He looked good. He was 87 years old. He looked good. Looked like he was having fun. Looked like he was strong. And, if that was what life gives you, and certainly take good care of yourself will make a difference. And with a few aids here and there, like glasses and hearing aids and maybe a magnifying glass in your backpack. So that, and you enjoy life into your 90s. And of course, everybody reads the newspaper item about. Are you to the age yet where you read the obituaries?
not yet. But
because Gustavo, you're still a young man. When you get to be the age where you read them, I haven't started reading them yet either.
Okay,
but I know that's a sure sign.
That is a sign
that you can see that there is a last birthday coming.
Well, Dr. McDougall, thank you for showing. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That's people, right. I guess I have a pair of sunglasses that have about the same standout.
That's right.
Features to them. And besides that, nobody will steal these.
No, that's for sure. Well, here we go. I have a few questions for you. So the first question is, I had diverticulitis last December and ended up in the hospital for 1 day. I stopped meats, eggs, oils. I already did not have any dairy products or processed foods. Still, most often than not, I feel as if my stomach is full even without eating. Anything I eat, it can be a fruit, a potato, just anything makes me feel my stomach is full, and I usually burp as if the food did not agree with me. Nothing seems to make me feel well. What do you think is going on?
Well, I just the text that you read me makes me think that the writer is having these problems only post diverticulitis and had no surgery that was identified. So tying it to the diverticulitis is very difficult for me. We talked about diverticulitis a couple of webinars ago when I gave you the talk about the lower intestine and how when you just put small amounts of matter in the large intestine, because you hardly eat any fiber, there's no fiber in any animal product. Fiber is non-digestible carbohydrate. Carbohydrates are only made by plants. And plants, some of the carbohydrates made by plants, our intestine can digest. Other carbohydrates are indigestible. And as a result, they pass all the way through into the large intestine and make a big mass of stool, almost stool. The effluent from the small intestine goes into the large intestine, and that matter is dehydrated and turned into what eventually is a stool. So what happens, how you get diverticular disease, which, by the way, was non-existent in Dennis Burkitt's world in Uganda, where he served as the head of ministries of health for 17 years. And he's the man who turned my life around, opened my eyes in 1971. So back in rural Africa in Uganda, as a matter of fact, I had a patient in the last program from Uganda. And we had a little bit of conversation about how life was when he was a young boy and how he ate exactly the McDougall diet and how nobody was overweight and so on. Well, anyway, getting back to the diverticulosis, which is what the pouches are called. When you squeeze at small diameters, remember, if you eat a lot of fiber, you squeeze at a big diameter. You eat no fiber, the large intestine squeezes at a small diameter. The law of Laplace, which is a law of physics, says when you make this squeezing motion at a small diameter to move things along, you have to create very high pressures. And so with a very high pressure, pops out a little balloon, and we call that a diverticula. So this is diverticular disease. If it's just diverticular disease or diverticulosis, the problem associated with it is bleeding because a blood vessel lies right next to the little pouch. That's where it breaks out, next to a blood vessel. And sometimes these become infected, like appendicitis. When the opening to this balloon gets closed by irritation from what's in the bowel, then the contents of the pouch get infected. We have diverticulitis. Now, both of the problems associated with diverticular disease, common problems, which are bleeding for diverticulosis and infection for diverticulitis, which can be quite serious, can result in abscesses and even death. So it needs to be taken care of. Both of these consequences can be stopped. I mean, these are early studies in the 1970s, and certainly not great studies, but why is anybody going to study anything that doesn't produce a ton of money? That showed that the bleeding episodes in people with repeat bleeding episode with diverticulosis and those who have repeat attacks of infection, diverticulitis, you can stop that just by adding fiber. And in the study I'm thinking of right now, they just added bran to the diet, which is an artificial way of raising the fiber in the stool. Is Miller's bran. It's just bran. What is the best way to do it is to put the right foods in the stomach, which are naturally high in fiber. So that's all happening in the large intestine. I mean, you can have these in the small intestine, even in the stomach and esophagus, these diverticuli, but they're due to a different mechanism. So having the diverticular problem, then you're telling me that you can't feel anything but full, even if you eat a little bit. It just doesn't connect as to how the two would be related. Maybe you have a mass in there as a result of the diverticular disease. Maybe the diverticuli ruptured and you formed an abscess, which is healed or partially healed, but it left a big mass, which is compressing your stomach. That's a possibility. Maybe you're chronically ill. And when you're chronically ill, and it could be from chronic diverticulitis, you lose your appetite. Regardless, it's not right. You're supposed to be hungry. You're supposed to eat. Your weight's supposed to be stable. That'd be a big clue to me as a doctor, is if you were losing weight and your appetite was that suppressed. That would be certainly enough indication to see a doctor and to ask for some non-invasive investigation. And this would be like an abdominal echogram, where they put sound waves in your abdomen and they can visualize the organs or any masses to see if anything's going on there. Unfortunately, once you get into the business, you ask the question, they're going to give you an answer. There are a lot more tests that could follow. They may be appropriate. They may have been helpful. They also are very costly and can be deadly. And these would be the endoscopes that are passed, usually under sedation or anesthesia. Endoscopes, in other words, tubes passed down the throat or up the bottom. We used to do these with a barium contrast material before these scopes were invented, which are useful, but they have their own problems and they're very costly. What we would do is somebody came in with complaints like yours. We didn't have the echo back then, but if we didn't say feel anything, I can't remember. Maybe we might have taken a few x-rays. Certainly felt the abdomen, see if we could feel a mass that would keep you feeling full all the time. And then what we do is an X-ray, a barium contrast X-ray called a barium swallow, and that would look at the esophagus and the stomach and see ulcers in the stomach and duodenum. And you could do a barium swallow with a follow-through, which means that then they'll look at the small intestine and see how that passage is and take X-rays of that. And the other test we used to do was a barium enema, where you take really just, clean a person out with a preparation, and then take a tube and infuse barium into the large intestine. There was kind of through like a backward flow and take pictures there. Now, those tests gave some great information at a little expense and at a little risk, but they're archaic. Why? Not because they're not useful, but because we have a whole other business that took over back in the early 1980s, and that was the endoscopy business with fibroscopy. So they could make tubes where they'd bend light, and you could take and bend around curvatures and still see an image. Wonderful technology, wonderful advancement. Been of great help, but it's also been of great cost and killed quite a few people. Anyway, the bottom line, without going on as to what else you need done, is you're not feeling right. You related to the diverticulitis. I can't, unless there's some obstructive mass there, you're chronically sick. And you need to ask the doctor the question, is there something more seriously wrong with me that I should be paying attention to?
Right. Okay, well, thank you, Dr. McDougall. Someone who attended your 10-day program and was very happy wrote to us and said that she attended the 10-day program last June, and at the end of the program, her cholesterol was measured, and it was fasting, and it was 196. And then this month she went to the doctor, and they took blood from her to measure the cholesterol, but it was non-fasting, and it's a little bit higher, it's 228. And she or he, I don't know if it's a lady or a man, is wondering if the results get affected whether the person is fasting or not.
Not much, not cholesterol. Blood sugar and triglycerides are affected greatly. Those are routine tests that we get by the time you eat, and that's why we have you stop eating at 8 o'clock, because of those two tests primarily. The influence on cholesterol, it could be there because, say you ate and the triglycerides or fat in the blood went up. These triglycerides also mix with proteins and cholesterol, and form particles called lipoproteins, LDL, HDL particles. Anyway, that cholesterol doesn't run around in the blood all by itself. It runs around in packages which contain protein and fat. And so it could raise it a bit. I would check the triglycerides that were done on the 2 occasions and see whether or not they went up. I mean, that may give you some comfort in terms of that's why they went up. But I'll tell you, most likely, try not to take offense. Most likely you're not eating as strictly as you were during the 10-day program. That's almost always the problem. And the first thing that I would ask you, if we talk by email, which I do with my patients quite often, if we talked, that's the first thing I would ask you is, how simple and how strict are you being with the program? And the usual answer I get when people are honest is, I eat better than I used to. Yeah, but better than you used to could mean an awful lot of things.
A lot of things. Yeah.
And I would say, look, just do a test. Pick, like Mary's just put on her crock pot, as we talk about so many times. Just put on her crock pot and some brown beans. I don't know what they are, but she buys all kinds of interesting beans. I just decide that for the next 7 days is plenty. But if you want to take it to the maximum, it's 6 weeks. You can see 6 weeks, almost all cholesterol lowering through any change. Diet, starting statins, whatever. And, be simple in your diet. Be very strict in your diet. Eat potatoes and beans or rice and beans. And don't go out to eat with any of your friends. And those Hershey candy bars that You didn't say you'd give up before you went to the 10-day program. That's the one thing you didn't say you were going to give up. You get rid of those.
Right.
So anyway, I think it's mostly a matter of strictness. And the way I would, the next question I would do to confirm that for me, even if the patient said, no, I've been perfectly strict, as I would say, because most of my patients need to lose weight. Well, you were in the program, I forgot, a year ago, and you were 60 pounds overweight. How much weight have you lost? Well, I lost 5 pounds during the program, doctor. And please, if you're, whoever wrote in, if you're taking this personal, please don't. I don't know who you are, and I'm not trying to be offensive at all. But I lost 5 pounds during the program. And when I went home, I lost another 5 pounds. But somehow I haven't lost any since. Or I've gained those 10 back, or whatever. Look, the diet always works. It's not like maybe it's right for my body type, or my blood type, or my taste bud desire today. Naturally, it makes sense that you should eat what you like. That's why the body likes it. Well, if the food was natural, I'd offer you all the cow blood you want to drink. All of the pig muscle you want to eat. You wouldn't eat it. You wouldn't like it. You naturally like sugar. Why? Because fruit's part of your diet. And starches do taste sweet. And you naturally like starch because you have taste buds, because that's what you're supposed to eat. And the idea that people, especially children, this used to be a big topic in the pediatric literature, well, naturally you present an array of foods in front of them, and they'll naturally pick what's good for them. If they're deficient in something like protein, they'll eat more Kentucky Fried Chicken, the lean one. It's complete nonsense. People have these taste buds. They would respond properly if the proper environment was around, but because of the manipulation of the environment by our desire and manufacturers and restaurants and so on to make it even more intently pleasing, has gotten us into a situation where everybody's sick. Everybody in our society is sick. The exceptions you can count on, you know what I'm talking about.
I know. I mean, Dr. McDougall, this last week, 3 people that I know closely, some of them are employees of mine, but they ended up in the hospital, and it's like everywhere I turn around, people are sick. And there is that connection between what goes in the mouth and what happens in the body. Somehow, these are intelligent people. That doesn't click. And it's so frustrating.
I used to believe that. In fact, I believed even more of what my parents taught me, which is what your parents taught you and all your parents taught you. And that is, there are only 2 important nutrients. And as long as you satisfy those 2, which are protein and calcium, then you're going to have a great life.
Right.
That's what we're taught. And we were taught by the protein and calcium industries.
And you're stuck with your genes, because everything that happens to you is because it's in your family.
It's in the family, and it is.
What is in the family actually is those recipes that are passed on that are keeping the family sick.
What do they eat in Argentina, Gustavo? You're going to Argentina.
Well, yeah.
Let me first tell you, I visited there once. Mary and I went there about 20 years ago, and I gave in and I said, all I can do is eat the Atkins diet. I can't find anything to eat except for a few canned vegetables and the Atkins diet. So I'll eat the Atkins. I'm just joking. I didn't eat the Atkins. I have to say, Argentina was one of the most difficult places I have eaten. And of course, I went from Chile to Argentina. Yeah. And I really think maybe Chile was worse than Argentina. Well, Argentina was pretty tough.
When you're stuck there and you don't have a house or an apartment and you have to eat out, it is impossible, pretty much. But otherwise, people, they have markets outside and markets. People do eat a lot of vegetables and fruits. But yes, it's meat-based. And so I think it's gotten better. People are getting more conscious now about vegetarian and plant-based, but I'm going there and I am not staying in a hotel or in I rented a place and I'm going to cook my own meals because it is difficult.
San Pablo. It's the biggest city in
Same.
Argentina.
That's in Brazil. Yeah.
Oh, in Brazil. Okay.
Buenos Aires and my
Yeah,
city,
that's right. Yes,
Cordoba, are in Argentina. But yeah, these are countries that are, meat based. You know.
My dad went to Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
He was with the Ford Motor Company, and it was one of the great things that happened to him in his life. And my mother went too. They went to
Right.
work for the Ford division, and he stayed there a year. They treated him well. I mean, it was completely different than my dad was used to. He got cars to drive him around, and worked at the Ford Motor Company. And first year, he told me, he says, "Son," he said, "I'm the oldest man alive here." And he was about 60, 65. He says, "Everybody else is dead." He said, "But, it's not hard for me to see why. A meal is they come out and they serve plates of meat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a meal."
Yeah.
And my mother lived in an apartment there, so they did their cooking on their own.
Right.
But he from Detroit, Michigan, raised on the good old American diet, was shocked not only by the amount of meat that they served there, but by the effect on the people. He said, "There aren't any males my age here."
It is. It is. I have seen it improve, but it's still difficult. Dr. McDougall, talking about eating, would you just say a few words about, someone was asking about, what do you think of eating once per day? Is that something that is negative?
I think that'd be okay. I don't think how many times a day or what time of the day you eat makes a whole lot of difference. It's what you eat. Say you were on the night shift, and so you had to work from midnight to 8 in the morning. You'd get adapted to that. There's some, of course, neuroadaptation that has to take place, and some things that never really totally adapt because of the night-day issues. But people do. They adapt when everybody else except those who live in China, they're eating at the same time of the day as you are in Detroit. But people adapt. They do well. It's what you eat. And as far as the number of times you eat, if you eat more frequently, say 14 times a day, you'll lose weight more efficiently than, say, somebody that eats once, twice, or 3 times a day. And part of that is because if you eat many times a day, you get the fuel in. The body realizes that you've eaten. It doesn't really have to store any extra of the food because it knows it's going to get some more food later. So it doesn't have to convert the carbohydrates into fat or shove as many fats from the food into your body fat. And if you measure the insulin levels, the insulin drives fat into fat cells and it's the response to eating. If you measure the total 24-hour insulin levels on people, and you look at those who eat, say, 14 times a day, the area under the curve, the 24-hour insulin production, is less than those who gorge or eat 1, 2, or 3 times a day. They have a total insulin production that's greater. Plus, if you only eat once, twice, 3 times a day, the body takes in a large amount of food, and it realizes that it has to store, because you're not going to be eating again for another 12, 14 hours or 24 hours. It has to store some of that energy. And so its storage mechanisms are more active, are doing more of what they have to do, so you can make it the whole 24 hours. So I would say there are some advantages to being a grazer, a nibbler, and there are some disadvantages to being a gorger. However, in terms of overall importance as far as your health, your longevity, I don't really expect a big difference.
Right. And Dr. McDougall, this is an interesting question that hasn't been asked many times, or maybe it's the first time, but I have actually wondered this too. So we're talking about the stomach and eating and knowing that, even though we can wash vegetables really well, sometimes we don't know if we're eating parasites. Can parasites be treated, or should we be concerned at all about this?
Well, parasites can be treated. Giardia. I see Giardia quite often. And amoeba infection is quite common, particularly among folks who live in the southern part of the U.S. Mm-hmm. Lots of amoeba. But Giardia is, if your kid goes to school, likely he has or has had Giardia. And these parasites can be treated with some very powerful, toxic, and occasionally deadly drugs, like Flagyl. Mm-hmm. That's a really big decision. Say you bring your child into the pediatrician or the doctor with complaints of stomach aches and maybe some diarrhea for the last 2 or 3 weeks and just doesn't seem to want to go away. And the doctor says, well, we'll get ova and parasites, ova being the eggs of the parasites, and parasite examination. And they'll take samples of your stool and they'll look at them under the microscope with a stain maybe. And they'll say, yep, this person has Giardia. It's not hard to pick up, not hard to identify. It's routinely done by basically every lab. Or they have amoeba. And you go back to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, we have to give this powerful antibiotic. And I've been in that situation, patient-wise and family-wise. And unless the person was extremely sick, which I don't ever remember seeing, I said, look, it'll pass. It will pass. And it does. The body deals with the parasite and the person becomes comfortable again. Sometimes the parasite's eliminated. Sometimes they just develop a happy relationship. So I thought the question was going to be, if you consume vegetables or foods from the ground or any place, they're going to have various environmental contaminants, right, pesticides, herbicides on them. They are going to have bacteria. And if a farm worker pooped on your cabbage, it's going to have all kinds of bacteria and parasites on it. So what do you do about that? Well, they're supposed to wash them after they leave the field, but of course you and I don't trust that. Washing's good. Well, what do you wash them with? The solution to pollution is dilution. Maybe I should say that one more time because I love it. I love that. Yeah. I learned it 50 years ago. The solution to pollution is dilution. In other words, you just a lot of water flushing. Well, should I put in chlorine in the water or some special cleanser I bought over the internet for $15 a bottle? I just put 1 tablespoon in a glass of water and then wash it. No. The solution to pollution is dilution. Just wash it. Mm-hmm. And that's the best you're going to do. Your body can tolerate a tremendous amount of exposure. It's built to do that. Of course, you want to minimize it. You don't want to purposely go out and eat from an arsenic-tainted rice field that was tainted by arsenic when they were trying to kill the boll weevil when they were growing cotton there in their land in Louisiana. You don't want to eat. You don't eat any kind of vegetable products grown in heavy metal contaminated soils. It's a real problem. Now you ask me how to avoid that. I guess you have to go to the packager of these products, call them up, tell them, do you analyze your rice or your et cetera, potatoes or rice or vegetables? Do you analyze them somewhere along the production line of collection and washing? Do you analyze them for the content of heavy metals, so dangerous metals? And, hopefully they tell you, yeah, we take care of that. Or do you analyze the soils to make sure that they're not contaminated heavily with thallium or cesium or, lead or arsenic or whatever? All these things are accumulated in vegetables. Some of them are, and particularly the really good vegetables, like the cruciferous ones, the ones, the broccoli and the kale and the other green leafy vegetables. They're called hyperaccumulators because they are so efficient at taking large amounts of dangerous elements out of the soil. And I mentioned thallium, I mentioned cesium, I can mention a whole bunch of others. and accumulating them and storing them in their parts that you eat. So these questions are essential. They should be asked. They have been asked. I'd have to review what's been done, but we're going to talk about aluminum and Alzheimer's disease over the next 3 weeks or so, maybe 2. Maybe
Good.
1.
Okay. All right.
And the contamination of our world with aluminum and all these metals is just it's an accepted thing that you're to eat polluted food.
Right. Well, Dr. McDougall, how about one more question, and then we'll probably need to close. And
that'll be good. We have a couple more weeks together before Dr. Lyle joins us, and we have let's see, we do have one 10-day program in August. It's probably full, but you can check.
I will be there, so it'll be
exciting.
But
in September, that's right, you will be there. In September, we have an intensive weekend.
Yes, that's right.
And you know what you could do is you could tell us how interested you would be in going on another McDougall adventure vacation. Mary and I put these on for almost 30 years, these McDougall adventures. And we've gone to all kinds of places. Our trips are probably limited now to Hawaii. But we had 120 people last time. The interest seems to be great. But I guess we need to be encouraged more to run more of these trips, because the weekends that we run, the intensive weekends we run, like the one in September, and the 10-day programs are really, they're our core business. I mean, that's really what we love to do, is that kind of education, and taking people to Hawaii for a vacation, or Costa Rica, or Panama, or Belize, or Galapagos, and all kinds of places we've taken people. It's been fun. It has been an awful lot of work, and more risk than we have to take in terms of having people with us at our clinic.
That's right.
So, I guess we need to hear of some interest that you have, and probably the best way to do that is to write office@drmcdougall.com. And serious inquiries only, because we're not going to turn our direction back towards vacations by just you saying, yeah, I'd like to go, but I don't have the money. Or I'd like to go, but I don't have the time. Well, I know everybody would like to go, particularly if we paid for the trip for you.
Right.
You don't have to tell Marion anything new. You'd love to go to Hawaii with us. Just send my first class ticket to this address. No, but anyway, that's something we're kind of debating as to when to do the next adventure trip, or even if to do one. But we have a September weekend you don't want to miss. It'll fill up.
Yeah, yes.
August is probably full, and December will get full really quick. We want to see you.
Let's take advantage of that. And also, I want to mention to people, because of course we have always more questions than we can cover in an hour. You have in your website this amazing feature where people type just one word if they want to know whatever. And all of your articles and your videos come up. And I think people forget about this feature. It's wonderful.
They do, or they don't use it, or they don't know about it. But the search engine,
it's
pretty much answers every question.
Every question, yeah.
I get probably maybe 50, 100 emails a day. And I remember your names when you write me and ask me questions. And sometimes after the third question, that easily they're going to find it on the website.
Yeah.
I say, look, have you tried the search engine? They're just too lazy, or they don't know about it.
Right.
Excuse me, I have time to answer really inaccessible questions, but put a little effort into it first, please.
Yeah.
Before you give me an email, because I'm going to write you back, and I'm going to be nice when I write you back. But there's going to be a point when I'm going to write you back, and I'm going to say, enough.
Yeah, yes, it's you all have worked so hard on this website. It's truly amazing. So I want to, everyone, make sure you go to drmcdougall.com. That is my rice maker right there.
All right. Well, then it's definitely time to go. The alarm went off.
It's time for lunch. Well, thank you. I do have some of the other questions that we haven't covered, and we will try them for our next. So don't give up on us. We'll get to your questions. Okay. And thank you, Dr. McDougall. Yeah, as always.
Thank you, Gustavo. I'll talk to you from Argentina next week.
I will be here still next week.
Oh, still here? Okay.
So I will be in Dallas still, even though I want to leave right now, but I have to wait. Really? It's winter in Argentina, and it's going to be quite cold when I get there, but it's fine with me. I like winter. Okay. Well, I hope you have a great week, Dr. McDougall and Mary and your family, and enjoy your grandkids.
Well, the grandkids, it's hot here, and the pool's fun, and they will be out for a lot.
All right.
So, good.
Very good.
I will talk to you next Thursday, and folks, have a good week. This is really simple. It's really simple, and it costs nothing.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. I'll see you next week.